morning, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Daily AI News. This is Ludica Pekina with GAI Insights. Today, I have a wonderful core crew, Adam, John, Tim, and Paul. And I will be driving the articles today because Ankash is not here, unfortunately. So the articles you can see at gaiinsights.com/articles. And please follow along and tell us what you think. Let's start with the first article. It is from Anthropic, and Anthropic is introducing financial services that they've done before. This is way more comprehensive that they've done before. So Adam, what did you think about this one?
So if you could please mute if you're not speaking. I'm getting a little background noise. Thank you. So this is, as it says, advancing Claude for financial services. So I dug a little deeper, and Claude for financial services was already out there, but it's some interesting capabilities. And the big thing they're adding here, as it shows there, is Claude for Excel. And I think I might consider this essential in terms of the broader trend of we saw just yesterday with OpenAI announcing about the capability to connect to your data. And here's Claude, right, taking the place of Copilot in Excel and chatting with your data and modifying it. So it's a very strong signal in terms of the trend here that's continuing in the positioning. It's pretty cool to see you can do that with Claude. I actually want to highlight one thing that if I share my screen here. When I was researching this a little more, I noticed, and I'll bring up this screen. There we go. So I noticed in this article about transforming financial services with Claude, which is the product they already have, they even highlight in the video that it's reading the deal teaser skill to understand how to make the workflow. Because the person said create a deal teaser. So there's this concept of skills, which I'm starting to pick up on. I want to highlight here because these skills are effectively like playbooks for an agent to understand how to execute something on brand or per certain specifications, almost like custom GPTs. And I noticed as well in Claude, when I was working with it earlier today, I asked it to do some work and make some PDFs, and it said, let me read the PDF skill documentation. So Claude is coming heavy with this idea of you being able to really make these bespoke, controllable capabilities and then have your agents implementing them. Between that, the overall advancement in the capabilities and the larger signal of what's happening in the market right now around all of these different agents coming into our applications and into our enterprise, I'd probably say it's important, if not an essential trend.
Right. So to your point, Adam, here is a whole bunch of skills that they put up, and they also have integrations to other tools that make the comprehension of Excel data much better and much easier and much smoother. So what did you think about this, Tim?
Yeah, I'm with Adam. Again, it's a product announcement but it's a product announcement from Anthropic, one of the two biggest vendors. And I think Anthropic has been doing a great job over time of getting into these vertical markets. They're hiring seasoned experts with a lot of domain knowledge, and therefore they're getting products out there that are quite useful. And I did like the way, as Adam noted, they use the Claude skills along with it. And again, it's another one of those unbelievable things to watch as to how much progress has been made in such a short period of time. So, the McKinseys of the world have said they're going full tilt at this, but I'll tell you what, their $1 million a month data rooms are going to be under threat pretty quick if this stuff works out. So there's a big economic impact here on very, very high-end work because private equity firms pay a lot of money and make a lot of money. So this is really interesting at the broad level as well. So we'll see. It's a product announcement, so it's hard to get unbelievably overhyped for it. So I would probably give it an important versus an essential, but I wouldn't argue with essential. There's a lot here.
Yeah. What did you think, John?
Yeah, no question in my mind, essential. I understand it's an add-on and it's a product announcement, but look, the low-code, no-code language of the professional class in financial services is Excel, right? And we're now talking about, talking about getting into the software of financial services, and that's huge, and Amazon just laid off 14,000 people on their way to 30,000. 10% of their workforce are coming out of they're not coming out of they're not coming out of the warehouses, they're coming out of the corporate offices. So I think this is big news. So
yeah, and look at these integrations, right? That Moody's for proprietary credit ratings, to invest operational equity investor data. It's just a lot of integrations that you can now bring analytics together very easily. So Tim, you're absolutely right. This is just another level. Okay, essential from John. Paul, what did you think?
Yeah, I'm definitely not essential. I think the challenge is, 95%. I don't know a single company that's using Claude as a secure employee chatbot. The examples here are companies are proving using Claude as an individual productivity enhancer for one or two or a handful of specific employees. So that's the main reason. I don't know. I don't know have a single company I can forward this news to. And the no code level, I think it's just blending in at a high level on, gems with workspace, with custom GPT and projects. So if in fact you're a Microsoft shop, you want to have no code alternatives. If you're in fact you've chosen to go the chat GPT, you want to have no code options. Here someone at Moody's is going to have to go make the case to the COO to please give me an exception to the employee use policy and allow me to use this specialized tool as an individual employee. And I don't think there's enough demand for that yet.
I think I have to tell you, Paul, the move from Microsoft to put Anthropic into the M365, I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's one of their tools.
For the PowerPoint, yeah.
Yeah, it's a big deal. So people may not know they're using Anthropic, and it's just started. You're right, but I think that's a pretty important beachhead for Anthropic into the enterprise.
Yeah,
and there are plenty of enterprises using Anthropic on the back end. But I would agree.
On the back end,
on the front end, I agree. It's a good point.
And this is an announcement from Anthropic. This is an announcement from Microsoft saying I'm using Claude.
Yeah.
No, but Microsoft has done it. We have it at the firms that I work with that have M365. It's already there.
Yeah.
Right.
So they may not even know they're using it. They just use this Office agent.
You're talking
thing.
about the Anthropic model. Are you talking about the Anthropic skills available now through your work through Microsoft?
No. Just the Anthropic model. I'm just saying it's definitely okay. It's a good point that you're making, that Claude is certainly still not the go-to Excel buddy.
Well, but I don't know about that. If you are AWS shop, then Claude is probably the preferred vendor, and they have the coding space. So for sure,
not for secure employee bots. We know dozens of companies that use AWS and using Claude, but do not want their employees using these tools.
Right. So at the front, at the employee facing, maybe, but in the back end, Claude, I think, is doing a really good job. So, but we need more data to proceed with this. Okay, so let's put it important and proceed to the next one.
Yeah, and just Vic's point online there, I think, is highlighting Tim's point. If it makes it a Microsoft AI factory, so preferred purchasing channel by these CIOs, that will really be fit in well and make a much bigger deal.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, next one is comes from HBR, and it's called Designing a Successful Agentic AI System. What did you think about this, John?
Yeah, I was going to give this an important. I think that I guess I was disappointed in the sense that there's a little bit of data in here, but not a lot. This notion of moving from, in a certain sense, it's a blind flash of the obvious, right? Design around outcomes and have people, be mission owners, unlock data silos and clarify the business logic. Develop the leaders and guardrails that intelligent systems require. It's written by somebody from Harvard Business School, along with two folks who are promoting their product, Emma, which is this agentic platform. So I don't know. I was hoping for something more in terms of actually what some of the managerial dynamics are, not kind of platitudes in the context of a platform. At the same time, it does have implemented. It is an implemented case study, not very well documented and so forth. Agents are huge, so that's why I gave it an important. I would. I wish our friends at HBR were a little more data focused, but so that's where I landed.
Okay, Adam, what did you think?
I landed on important well, and I echo John's sentiment. I was a bit disappointed, and it could have been much more, I guess, principle and fact based. And then at the end, they say, for those intrigued by agentic AI but uncertain where to start, we suggest beginning with a high friction customer journey where outcomes matter but handoffs slow things down. And I'm like, you've just dumped all this information on them, and now you're just sort of winging this process, which seems pretty arbitrary. It's not really based on anything. Assign a mission owner, right? And reframe it as a mission. And I'm like, okay, where did they just go with this? Is sort of a way to give the leader something to walk away with. It just sort of left me lacking.
Yeah,
I mean, and it has good descriptions of the project and how they and
there's merit in it. Yeah, I gave it an important.
Okay, Tim.
I was more towards optional because it was lacking in certain ways, and I thought almost confusing because they say, oh, well, you don't have to do any data work. But anybody who's done the data work, then they say, well, what you do have to do is get all your metadata organized. That is the data work. Okay. that's the hard part. If you can get your data dictionary at a meta level defined across all your different data silos, then whether you put it in an online data dictionary or not is a minor difference. And I would recommend, if you go through all that trouble, you might as well use an online dictionary. So they sort of belittle that, but and it's a good point that you don't have to unify the data sources, which a lot of data vendors want you to do, but you do have to do the hard work of unifying your data elements. And so it's almost confusing, or I don't want to say duplicitous, but let's just say confusing. Okay. So to me, it was
optional.
Not that great.
Okay, Paul, but forwardability of this article is.
I can't 100% optional here. I mean, I think the challenge is the word AI agent is now used something as simplistic as an Excel macro, all the way up to intergalactic enterprise system that sends a shuttle up in space here. So, the thing that the market needs, and these guys aren't doing, is segmentation of what we mean by agents. Is it human triggered? Is it machine trigger? Is it conditional? Is it forward? Is it back? Is it single step? Do you actually need integration with data? We've seen a bunch of those skills from Amazon or Anthropic. You don't have to have integration with data and a data dictionary to do a skill that's proofreading your contract here. So, I didn't find I've had 4 calls with companies in the last 3 days who are trying to understand where to use agents, and not single one of them would find value in this article. So I guess I'm fired up today. A lot of coffee.
Adamant plea for optional. Optional it is.
I was trying to be generous, but they're right.
Okay, optional it is. We are proceeding to the next one. And this comes from Hugging Face. And the article is called Building the Open Agent Ecosystem Together with Meta, Introducing Open Environment. What did you think about this one, Tim?
I think this is optional for the AI leader. It's interesting. It's yet another standard. What's the old joke? The nice thing about standards is there are so many to choose from. But it's an important idea in that we need to get beyond individual tools towards total environments, total cost of ownership kind of things. We learned this with software. We'll learn it again with these AI systems. We learned it with machine learning systems. You really have to manage them cradle to grave. And this is an effort to try and standardize the environments which enable that. So if you're making those environments, I suppose this is pretty important because these are 2 big entities in the open source space that are promoting this, but it's just out of the gate. And for most people, this is going to be a background kind of thing.
Okay, so optional from Tim. Paul, what was your thought here? You're on mute.
I'll refrain from responding today because I'm so fired up. So I'll support this.
Okay, John, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I had this thing as optional. You know, I think this notion of, you know, open environment as a way to think about testing and so forth, that's cool. I think managing the context is cool. But, you know, for me, it's early days and optional for our AI leader.
Yeah. Okay, so Adam, optional?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, so next. Oh, I'm deep into the article. So this is a survey. Sorry, should have done it before. That means I've read it. A survey of vibe coding with large language models. It's actually very comprehensive, but a very long compendium. What did you think about this, Adam?
I thought this was super interesting. And they took effectively like 1,000 research papers on vibe coding and have looked at how you can actually create a hierarchy and formalize and start to understand, as I was sharing there, if we bring that up bigger, the hierarchy of how these things actually relate. And so they, as they say, which is really interesting, it's effectively these 1,000 examples can be broken into 5 development models. And it's from unconstrained automation to iterative conversation, planning driven, test driven, and then context enhanced models. So I personally think it's super interesting. I think for enterprise, especially as we start to move forward even a little more into this idea of citizen development and agents and individuals really being the ones who know best how to automate their own business processes within the organization, this classification is potentially going to become very important. It is early, but especially I feel an important step forward for the concept of vibe coding in terms of the legitimization and the understanding really of it as a practice. So I was leaning towards important.
Why not essential, Adam?
How many people are actually going from vibe coding to production within their enterprise right now? It's still a bit early.
They should be considering, right? And reading this paper gives them a whole bunch of input.
An article on the benefits of vibe coding and how you could look at adopting into your organization is probably better than a taxonomy in a research paper in terms of an essential read on the topic.
Okay, so Adam puts it as important. What did you think, John?
Yeah, I had it as optional to important for the same reason taxonomy is useful. You know, as an academic, you know, certainly useful if you're doing, you know, research and things like that. But in terms of operationally making something happen, I don't think it helps that much. So, you know, I had it as, I mean, it's a nice compendium, so that's why I had it as important, not optional.
Okay.
Not essential.
Okay, and Tim?
Optional for me. You know, I'm maybe I'm not quite as fired up as Paul, but the utility of this to the average AI leader is 0, in my opinion. It is interesting. It's a well-written paper. It's one hierarchy. I'm glad they did it. Things like this can be helpful, but we don't even know if vibe coding is a real trend. I mean, you know, this is like studying something that could just be a ripple in the stream and disappear tomorrow. And it's just one version of it. You could slap a different hierarchy on this too and make your case. So we'll see where it goes. It's interesting. It's an interesting read if you want it. And I think they did a decent job. It's just not that relevant.
Interesting. I read it and then thought about what are the lessons. If I were a CIO, what would I pick up from this? And there are several. Like they argue essentially that context engineering needs to be a first-class discipline across the enterprise. They don't argue it, but it kind of comes out. Then there's like the verification loops and how to put it together. A lot of things come up about the governance and design implications of how do you sandbox it. So there are a number of things as you read it apply to the structuring of your environments, I think. So I put it as important. Paul, you have the last word, even though you are fired. You are very, very fired.
Yeah, I'm with Tim. I actually thought it was a well-researched article. I thought their definition of vibe coding was still too broad. LLM with the human and some agents. And CIOs do not have time to read articles like this. And when you get to the technical choice stuff, all these technical teams have very strong opinions going into this, and they're all using Claude and the other AI robots to find alternatives. And they're influenced by peers. They're not influenced by research papers here. So they want to find peers they trust that use these tools and
right.
not putting it
right.
on top of things.
And you have to be able to buy the tools. I mean, they do a good job identifying problems to a certain extent, but you have to, it's like, I'd love it if there were perfect flights everywhere I wanted to go that were nonstop, but there aren't. You just have the schedules there are, and you have to choose the flights you get on. And to a certain extent, that's more what people need to do, is to say, well, if I need to do context engineering, or I need to do this or that, these are the tools I've got. How do I do it? And it doesn't really address that at all.
Right. And I think it's a good example of a bunch of researchers finding an area to do researchy things and not people getting together to really try to solve problems for time-starved, pressed companies.
Yeah. So, Adam, I'm convinced by Tim and Paul. Are you still important, or should we go optional? I'm thinking optional.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Optional it is. Proceeding to the next one. Next one comes from LangChain, and it's defining frameworks, agent frameworks, or agent runtime, and agent harnesses. What did you think about this, Adam? No, John.
Yeah, I give this definitely optional. I mean, I think that, in the early days of any taxonomic activity, which is what we're doing here with agents and context and so forth, to me, this is the opposite of the other article, in the sense of, I think this actually creates confusion by relatively arbitrary categorizations, like an agent harness. It's like, okay, I don't think that this. I think this actually makes life more difficult, not less difficult. And I just keep thinking back to back when we used to talk about different level, fifth level languages, fourth level languages, fifth level languages, things like that. That in a certain sense, there's a kind of English you need to use, or a kind of language you need to use in the context of vibe coding. And context for me certainly sounds like state space in a computer environment. And so I think we're poorly reinventing a bunch of stuff which actually is relatively well articulated back some years ago, and adding this kind of arbitrary language in the context of somebody's products, I think, is just adding fog when we need sunlight. So optional for me.
Yeah, and they didn't really go into the definition too much. They just put out. It just becomes right.
Well, Paul and I were talking about the other day about agents. I think that we need a more foundational framework for agents, whether it's the nature of the control system, because what I think computer scientists thought a lot about back before and talked about in an explicit kind of model-based way was, what's my control approach, and what are the loci of control. And I don't see any of that conversation happening here. We have this really sloppy definition of agents and this really sloppy definition of context. We're kind of rolling around in the mud epistemologically on this thing, and framework-wise. And I think we need a better way.
Yeah, the LangChain is a good pioneer in this space, and they defined LangChain and LangGraph, and it has quite good definitions. They're going deeper into it, right? But without specific definitions. So I like LangChain because they define semantic information way early in the LangGraph, and it is used by many people, right? So I like them, but this is pretty sloppy. Okay, Adam, what did you think?
Yeah, a little too much like a product announcement and a stake in the ground, right? Like, they've always sort of been the pioneer, and here they are summiting a new mountain and saying, look, we were the ones, we had the deep agents, we had the framework, and
Not clear.
Okay. The other people made some good points here. The other analyst, I'm a little underwhelmed. Optional.
Optional. We're going optional. Tim, Paul?
Yeah. Stick to your day job. They're good at the technology. They should avoid this kind of stuff.
I think optional for this article, but essential for the new technology. The new term John came up, mud epistemology.
Okay, optional it is. To the last one comes from VentureBeat and talks about Minimax M2 as a new king of open source LLMs, especially for agentic tool calling. What did you think about this, Tim?
I think this is optional. It's a product announcement. We've talked over and over and over again. So there's an important trend here in the amount of money and the large firms working on these very high quality open source models from China. And this is yet another one. It's from two very large companies, Alibaba and Tencent, and well-funded and very interesting the way it does things. It's yet another, in a sense, everyday miracle. It's not beating the top systems, but it's right up there with a much smaller model that's open source. And if there's anything significant here, it's that it's an Apache and MIT license, so much friendlier license structure. But I think you still got the fact that it's open source, which means you got to go to somebody that, these things are not out of the box. I just use them. They're not distributed by the hyperscalers yet. So there's some real friction in terms of getting these things into widespread use. But another example of how models are advancing, particularly open source models in China. And I do think the friendlier licensing will make some difference, just not clear how much. So I would still say optional.
And Tim, this would not make a big deal for the large companies to adopt it, but look at the pricing difference, right? This is quite significant. So there will be a layer of adoption for this model, and it's free, right? It's open weights. Optional from Tim. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's true. But there are 500,000 open source models with similar pricing. They have yet to make a significant dent in the market.
Right. What did you think, John?
Yeah, optional for me too. And I think that if I read this right, this is mostly open, right? You still don't have open data, and so you don't know what's
open weights, only open weights, right?
And open model. So another competitor, super important topic about open versus closed, China versus U.S. But this to me is another product announcement. Impressive, but everyday miracle.
Okay, Adam.
I'm good with optional. I was noticing if you actually scroll down just a little more on the cost efficiency, you'll see Grok 4 there, which is quite powerful. And I mean, it's almost ludicrous how cheap it is. So just wanted to call that out. And when you actually graph, I actually took a screenshot of this table and the image above it with the intelligence scale, and had Claude make me a 3D graph of the intelligence of models against the cost for input and output tokens. And it's really nice to be able to see like where those outliers are in terms of the cost performance effectively. That was the only reason why I probably would consider this important, is to bring the awareness to the broader spectrum of what we consider in terms of intelligence against cost per inference, right? Which we want to continue to elevate the conversation around. But this specific announcement is probably optional for me.
But this is funded. This is well funded, and this is the core capability that they're bringing to market with a velocity that is unheard of. So it's interesting, and it's a player to watch, because over the last couple of months, they've gone from video model, from thinking model, and with very high performance into this. So this is quite good. Paul, your last word.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a recurring theme. We have vendors saying they can do great things. We say, wait till you show us the customers. We have these models that have great capabilities and cheap price. We're saying, wait till we think. So, I think we've seen such a a collapse of, or there's such an explosion of options out there that distribution, as Tim keeps talking about, counts. So I think this is everyday miracle in the explosion of Chinese open source models, which are absolutely kicking the butt of all the Silicon Valley highly confident firms. But from AI later, this is optional.
Yeah, okay, optional it is. Let's proceed to the scorecard. Adam, you're the new scorecard maker. And if you have any announcements, Paul, John, Tim?
A couple announcements on a learning lab. We had a great learning lab last night. 2 topics. One was the State of AI report from Nathan at Air Street Capital. Just a great report. 300 pages. I think we got through about 30 or 40 of them. But headline there was how much the world's changed and exceeded the expectations of that learning lab group, which is pretty full of early adopters. Second thing, last night we had a demo of OpenAI Atlas. A lot of people are interested. A lot of people are concerned about the security aspects of it. They're flying around there, but definitely interest in this new emerging browser wars. Today at noon Eastern and 9 Pacific, we have our weekly Copilot 101 training. I think there's 60 people signed up for that. So if you want to increase your skills to become an AI first professional, join us for that.
Wonderful. And today we have one important and all the rest are optional. So thank you all for joining, listening, and have a wonderful day. We'll see you tomorrow.